Let's start up with the next presentation, where we have the pleasure of welcoming Carl-Johan Zetterberg Baudry, who is the CEO of Doro. My name is Simon Granat, and I'm covering IT and tech stocks at ABG, and I will be moderating this presentation. But with that said, now let's get started. Carl-Johan, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Simon, and lovely to be here, even though it's special times. So we do this to meet you digitally rather than physically. But that's the new way of working today, and to a large extent that works very well. And probably come back to that later. It seems, or that's something where we see that the business that we are in is more relevant than ever during a situation like COVID-19. So Simon, if you could change the next slide, please. And I will give you a short introduction of Doro, some understanding of the market and market environment, and our ambition at Doro in transforming senior care and our strategy in doing so. If we take next slide. Doro is a senior-oriented technology company established back in 1974 and with a long history of technology and transformation. We're headquartered in Sweden with close to 1,000 employees. Doro is the market leader in Northern Europe in senior care technology and the worldwide market leader for senior mobile phones. Yearly, we assist more than 3 million seniors and have an annual revenue of 2 billion SEK. And our focus on care, we are now on an annual recurring revenue from care of approximately 400 million SEK. And for the last 5 years, our annual average growth within care have been 34%. Next slide. The aging of society is one of the modern world's most pressing challenges. There are more and more seniors, there's a shortage in healthcare professionals, and the current healthcare systems have a challenge in absorbing the drastic needs in care. And I think the current pandemic with COVID-19 have just emphasized the need for social care and healthcare and the need for different type of solutions and structures in order to cope with the need that we see now and that we probably will see in the future. Next slide. So our business today in Doro, we have two business segments. The first one being business segment care, which is a business focused on technology-enabled care services for senior relatives and caregivers. This is a business that's primarily driven by public procurement, where our typical customers are local authorities, municipalities, housing associations, and similar. And our second business segment is business segment phones, which is focused on smart and easy to use mobile phones targeted to seniors. This is a business where we predominantly sell to retailers and operators throughout Europe for both our business segments. So our customers are typically a B2B or B2G customer as in care, but the end user or the end consumer is the senior itself, using our products and services to facilitate everyday life and increase safety and well-being. Revenue-wise, 2019, our business segment phones accounted for approximately 75% of our revenue, and care accounted for roughly 25% of overall revenue, of which services accounted for close to 80% of the total business within business segment care. Next slide. As I said in one of the previous slides, Doro is a market leader in Europe in our business segment Care, we are the market leader in monitored connections in Sweden, Norway, and the UK. In Sweden and Norway, we have market share of monitored connections of over 40%, and in UK of over 10%. And for phones, we are the clear market leader for senior mobile phones in Europe, with more than 60% value share in our main markets, Sweden, UK, France, and Germany. Next slide. Financially, Doro is a growing care business. Net sales, as you can see, have grown up to be more than 2 billion SEK in total. And our care business has also grown steadily in the last couple of years. The recurring revenue business, as I said, is close to 400 million SEK in 2019. And since 2017, the annual growth in services have been close to 40%. And being a growing care business, but also with an improved underlying profitability, so adjusting for any restructuring or other one-off related costs, the adjusted EBITDA percentage is 11% in 2019, and a solid cash flow. So last year and the year before, our free cash flow has been over 100 million SEK in total. Next slide, and I think you can jump one slide ahead directly. So we go into the market, and especially to give you some more emphasis and insight to the market of technology-enabled care. As I mentioned briefly before, there are acute challenges for the healthcare systems in Europe, driven by a number of factors. One is, of course, there's a growing elderly population. As I mentioned before, within the coming 30 years, there will be 50 million more seniors in Europe. So as you can see, the total number of people of 65 plus will be more than 150 million people in Europe 2050. There's a shortage of healthcare professionals in supporting taking care in this growing elderly senior population. Already today, there's a shortage of healthcare professionals, both in healthcare and social care, with more than 7 million persons or staff in this. And in 2035, the deficit worldwide is expected to be as much as almost 13 million people within healthcare. And on top of that, there's a growing funding gap for governments, regions, and local authorities alike in funding the increasing need for social care. So what we can see here is an example from UK, where there already now is a deficit in funding for social care that's more than £2 billion, which is expected to more than double in the next 5 years to more than £4 billion in the UK alone. Next slide. This, of course, means that the market is demanding more efficient care models. And as you can see, a few of the challenges, but also the solutions, there are more and more working age people to support fewer, as you can see, where today, roughly, there's one senior for every working age individual, whilst we see in 2060, the projections are that the relationship, instead of 1 to 4, will be 1 to 2. Meaning that fewer will have to support more. And also where the cost of people being treated in hospital care or residential care compared to be able to be treated in home care is significantly more expensive. So I think Combined with the challenges I mentioned in the previous slide, with an elderly population, shortage of healthcare professionals, and the funding gap, means, of course, we need to find new solutions to change this picture. And we firmly believe that technological solutions that enable senior care at home while reducing costs for society will be the future and the way we have to go going forward. Next slide, please. And these factors, and as we shortly mentioned, part of the solutions, and I'll get into a little bit more on details on our strategy and how to enable, how to find solutions to tackle the challenges we mentioned and to enable people to live at home safely and securely and be home cared. But those factors means that the addressable market grows from our perspective as the senior population increases and people live longer. It's expected that the penetration of care services will increase and revenue per customer or user will grow as new services and new products are introduced. So all in all, that means that the European market for technology-enabled care is expected to nearly double from roughly 2.5 billion euros today up to around 4.5 billion euros in 2024. Next slide. And you can jump one slide ahead as well, Simon, and looking into our perspective and Doro's way in helping and driving the transformation of senior care. So looking at the world of Doro to some extent in senior care today, one key cornerstone of the offering we have is our Doro contact center, where we have qualified staff and intelligent software platform supporting the more than 3 million seniors that we support on a yearly basis. And we then have products, services and solutions to support family to stay informed and involved, to support seniors in individual living with care phones, sensors and software solutions. Also for seniors to be able in the same way stay safe and secure and live their life at the fullest in assisted living, but also to have mobile solutions for seniors to enable them to move freely and independently in a secured way, but also solutions for caregivers, including local authorities and municipalities, to have access to information and data about seniors in their environment. And next slide, please, Simon. And as I mentioned before, everything we do at Doro, we do to try to improve the life of seniors. And as I mentioned before, we assist more than 3 million seniors on a yearly basis to help them to live a more safe, independent and fulfilling everyday life. And here you see a few of the testimonials on seniors that we have supported throughout the years in helping them to take better care of loved ones, to be able to feel confident, more safe and more independent. Next slide, Simon. And one very important aspect that we see in tackling the solutions of current care or care solutions and moving into the next generation solutions and transforming the market for senior care is to move from today's more responsive and reactive solutions to the future solutions that will be more predictive. So the current solutions of today are in many markets more analog-based, standalone systems which are more responsive and reactive to alarms and sensors and information that are received from those products. Moving into the future market where IP or digital solutions and integrated solutions from product, services and software, including mobile and apps, enabling more monitoring of daily life activities and empowerment of caregivers will drive more predictive and preventive solutions. And also move from more product-oriented offerings to even more services and solutions-based offerings where, as I said, integration of hardware and software will create a more sort of complete alternative and solution for the seniors, for families and for caregivers. Next slide, Simon, and you can jump one ahead as well to talk a little bit about the strategy from our perspective in being a driver and the leading company in transforming senior care. So for us, as I said, to be a leader in transforming senior care and tackling the challenges that we talked about, we have a few strategic priorities to achieve that. One being sort of focus on our core development, to continue to innovate and build a foundation in our business, to drive further efficiencies and sort of continuous improvement in our business, to make sure that we have the right service delivery excellence and efficiency in everything we do. And from a short-term focus is, of course, making sure that we drive the right type of margins in our care business and improving efficiency in the products and services that we deliver. The second part is market expansion, which I will come into a little bit more detail very soon. But it's to expand in both existing markets and into new markets. And then the third one is service expansion, where new products and software platforms will enable us to add new services, which will drive an increase in revenue per customer, revenue per year as well. So next slide, Simon, and to talk a little bit more of increasing average revenue per user, as we said before, with digitalization and with service expansion. And here you could see some examples and indicative numbers for different markets where we are active today in technology-enabled care, where UK today is an analog-driven market and as such more reactive-driven in terms of the products and solutions that are offered in the market, compared to then Sweden and Norway, where Sweden is a digital market and Norway has also moved to digital but increased the scope of services to some extent. And as you can see, we move from an analog market to more digitally driven market, and as we move from a more narrow and more reactive type of service scope to a broader and more digitalized service scope, then the average revenue per user increases. And maybe as you might see here, but these are yearly values. And then of course, as we move into integrated solutions with prevention, with analysis, etc., then we see that the average revenue per user should and will increase as well. Next slide, Simon. And then talking about market expansions being the other very important aspect for us to grow and expand our care business. And as you can see today, and as we mentioned before, we are the market leader in individual living, in number of monitored connections in Sweden, Norway and the UK today. But what we are actively doing in the markets where we are strong today and have an active service business is moving into also assisted We are predominantly a very strong player in individual living, but we have and are continuing to develop strong solutions for assisted living and are expanding into the market for assisted living in Sweden, Norway, and the UK as a first step. And as you can see, here we are opening up a large and very interesting market that for us has been untapped the last couple of years to a large extent, and targeting that as well. And then in combination, we are also looking into expanding into new markets, both looking into interesting large markets in Europe, like Spain and France, for example, where we see that an expansion organically or through acquisition can be relevant, but also looking into expanding, I would say, maybe more from our existing geographical presence, moving into maybe, for example, Denmark and Finland, based on the presence we have today in neighboring countries. So combination in market expansion, both of expanding the addressable market in terms of the type of solutions we offer and the type of market when we talk about individual and assisted living, but also an interesting opportunity to move in with our solutions and products and services into new markets as well. And then we can take next slide, Simon. And I think that rounds up the presentation from my side, and to leave over to you, Simon, if there's any questions that received and you would like to ask.
Thank you, Carl-Johan, for the stellar presentation. It was very giving, I believe, to many people. And perhaps starting off from this Q&A session, I believe that many people have COVID-19 on their mind. Is it possible for you to give any guidelines for how May has progressed? I know that in the Q1 report you say that April's order intake was down by roughly the same as in the second half of March. Is this also the case for May?
I think unfortunately I can't be maybe as specific as you or what others would like. But I think in general what we can say, we do. I think a large part of May has been a similar situation as April, in the fact that many of our larger markets have been closed also during at least first half of May, and as Germany, France, UK. What we've seen now in the second half of May is there are sort of slowly trying to open up societies again, making it possible for people to go outside, making it possible for shops to start to reopen, etc. So yes, we are starting to see, call it, slow signs of going back to a more normal way of life, or life as we knew it before COVID-19. I think then with that said, I think we still see there is some, call it, consumer are still a little bit cautious, both from a virus perspective and I would say an economical perspective. So our estimate is we will start to see recovery, but a slow recovery. I don't think there will be a sharp spike upwards and we're normal as this never happened within the next couple of weeks. I think there will be a gradual return in terms of sales and life going back to a more normal state.
Interesting, thank you. You also, a couple of weeks ago, you announced that you have implemented a cost-saving program. How has this cost-saving program progressed, and have you already today reached the level that you wanted? And what does this refer to?
Yeah, good question, Simon. I think so far we are progressing according to plan with the cost-saving program. Of course, I would say the size and the length of the program is, of course, very dependent on how sales will return here after, I would say, the most critical weeks of COVID-19. But according to the plans that we have, we are in line so far. They are progressing as they should. And I would say the cost savings are referring to a number of different activities, but they are both referring to what we in Sweden would say short-term leave. So we've had a number of employees on short-term leave in more or less every country. We've also implemented, of course, and that's a natural effect of many countries being closed and there is essentially no way to travel, but reducing spend in direct, like travels, like other purchases, reviewing investments, what investments are right to do now and what should we maybe do at a later stage. And then also, of course, reviewing the organization in general. And we have, as an effect, and according to our strategy, made some efficiencies in the organization, and as a result, reduced the number of employees slightly here in the last 2 months as an effect of COVID-19. So I would say it's it's a quite broad palette that we've implemented to reach a cost level that we think is more healthy given COVID-19.
Okay, thank you for that, Carl-Johan. Unfortunately, I think that we are running out of time, but are there any final words that you would like to say before we hand over the presentation to the next presenter?
No, thank you very much, Simon. Thank you for good questions. I think as we highlighted through our presentation, there are a lot of challenges on both social care and healthcare. I think COVID-19 have just emphasized that even more. And we as a company, we have a strong position in this market and have a unique understanding of the seniors and their needs. And we're fully committed to be a leader in transforming senior care and improving lives for seniors.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Carl-Johan, and stay safe.
Likewise, thank you very much.